Q&A session. I am the author of Bringing Up a Bilingual Child. I'm also the driving force behind the website multilingualparenting.com, as well as this page where you're at the moment, Multilingual Parenting on Facebook. We also have a Facebook group, Multilingual Parenting, which you can search on Facebook, or there's a link on the page, so you can ask to join there. I would love to see you there. If you do, remember to also answer all the questions that there are 3 of them to start with, so can more add you quickly to the group. There seems to be a problem with the microphone. If you cannot hear me, please do let me know. Okay, so in addition to writing, I've written a book, I write blog posts, Q&As. I do individual family language coaching, where I help parents to raise their children to speak more than one language. We do that through an initial exploration session. Then I do a tailored questionnaire, and then we have a follow-up session, and then we put together a family language plan for each family. So that's the service I can offer if anybody wants to have a dedicated family language plan set up for them. If there are any questions in the comments, I will also answer those too. Otherwise, I have 3 questions today coming from Patrícia, Pam, and Malika. And the first one comes from Malika. No, sorry, I will start with the one from Patrícia. From Patrícia, who lives in Portugal, and she is Portuguese and her partner is German. Together they speak English. They are expecting a baby. Congratulations. Oh, it was in the eighth month when the question came in, so you might already be the proud parents of a little boy or a girl. In case that, if that's the case, congratulations even more. So the question is that Patrícia and her partner have been considering which daycare or school they will choose for their child. So they have the option of choosing either Portuguese, German, which would be mom's language and dad's language, or Portuguese and English, which would be mom's language plus English that mom and dad speak together. Of course, this means there wouldn't be any German exposure for the child except when the dad is home. So the question is which one to choose between the two, either a Portuguese German one or a Portuguese English one. But this is, like it always is, a question about priorities. Whichever language you choose in addition to Portuguese, that's the language that your child will become more proficient in. And whether to choose English or German is, my first question will be, how much time will your partner have to spend time with the child? Because if your child goes to a Portuguese English school, then he will be, most of the time, he will be the only source of language, German language exposure to your child. And depending on how much that is, if he were to be a stay-at-home dad, then that probably would be enough for him to pass on the language. But if he does, let's say he works a normal working day, maybe or child is asleep when he comes home, so he doesn't see him that much, then you have to consider whether that really is enough, without knowing the details, which I would do through, for example, if we did individual language coaching, then I would explore that in more detail. Without knowing those details, I can't say whether it still would be enough for the German to be passed on to your child. Generally, if you ask my opinion, without having the exact details at hand, I probably would recommend that you go for a Portuguese German daycare or school, because it's always easier to find exposure to English, and that I presume that will still continue to be your common language. You say, Patricia, that you know a bit of German, but not much. So you switch to English when you speak with your German-speaking parents-in-law or your partner's parents. To me, that then indicates that there will be English at home always. So your child would still get that exposure even if he goes to a Portuguese German school. So hope that helps you a bit. And please do ask, if you're watching the recording, and just ask some further questions if you have them in the comments, and I'll pick those up as well. And so the next question comes from Pam, and she is Polish. Her husband is Hong Kong Chinese, and they live in Hong Kong. They don't have children yet, but Pam is already thinking about how she will be able to juggle the languages that they have in the family. And that's something that I really commend. It's really good to think about these things in advance, because when a baby arrives, especially the first one, it's such a big change in the family. So you don't have much time to think about these things. So having a plan in advance is really good. So Pam is trying to learn the language. Pam, you do not mention how long you have lived in Hong Kong yet, but I presume you will, if you will continue to live there, you will have more exposure, and you will have a chance to maybe go to some language course, so you can improve your own Cantonese. Together with your husband, you speak English, and English will be one of the languages for your child in any case. So you speak Polish, your husband speaks Cantonese, and then there is always a lot of English in Hong Kong, and there, like you rightly say, several schools expect children to know some English as well. So your concern, Pam, is that because you will be working, that there won't be enough time for you to speak Polish, and that you would feel excluded from most of your child's life, because your child you are expecting your child to learn Chinese and English. You also mentioned that you do not want your children to learn many languages at the same time. Well, that I would be less concerned about. Children have an amazing capability of picking up languages. So let's say if you were to speak Polish, your husband speaks Cantonese, and the family speaks Cantonese, and then there is English exposure through playgroup or anything, or daycare, or then always there will be English because you speak English with your husband, so that will always be there. So put the worries about confusing your children by exposing them to many languages aside. That is not a worry you need to have. They will pick up the languages depending on the amount of exposure. They will learn to speak them. My expectation is that your children will learn Cantonese and English, and I do believe that you can pass on the Polish as well. And this is a typical case where I would like to talk to you in more detail to understand how long hours you're working, and what are the chances or what opportunities you have to speak Polish with your child, and whether there are any other options to support you in passing on Polish. It's a question of priorities. If it is really important for you to pass on the Polish, which I feel from your message that it is, then it's a question of finding ways of making sure that your child gets enough of the Polish exposure. And I'm sure we could find a way to do that. You could, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of Polish people in Hong Kong. Maybe you can connect with those. Maybe you would have a chance to get a Polish speaking nanny or an au pair to stay with you, because that would help a lot with the Polish exposure. But it all, as I said, it all depends on how much time you have, and whether it's financially possible to involve an external person like an au pair, a nanny, or a tutor to help you with it, and how long hours you do. So I know my daughters grew up learning Punjabi from their dad, and he was consistent in always using Punjabi, but he didn't. He was working long hours at the time when they grew up, but they still picked it up, and it took them a bit longer to get going and to learn to speak it, but they do, and they still can. They are now adults, and they both can lead fluent conversations with their Punjabi speaking relatives and friends. So I know it can be done. And thank you for joining us, Mariana. I can see your question. I will come to the questions in the comments at the end of the session. And Jen, the same. Glad to have you here. I will get to you after the last question, which is from Malika. Malika, who grew up bilingual with English and French, is now, they have with her English-speaking partner a 16-month-old boy who she would like to bring up bilingual, at least so he can also speak or understand and say something in French. So initially, Malika spoke. Malika, if you're watching, please let me know. So Malika, you spoke English to start with. Your son has been much in contact with your parents or your mom, and she speaks French, and you still speak French with your mom, but you feel that your French is rusty, and that you throw in English words, and you feel that your grammar isn't correct anymore, but you understand it very well. So you have a really good receptive skill, and I think because you've been fluent in French before, it wouldn't take that much time or effort to get you back to getting used to speaking French again, more French. Because what you say, that I quote here from your message, I find it impossible to speak to him continuously in French. And although you have noticed how much French he understands, and you have made more effort to speak more French with him, you find it difficult. And so what you currently do is that you repeat the same sentence in both languages, and you ask whether your approach of switching rapidly between two languages is going to cause language confusion. I don't think it's going to cause language confusion. I actually know someone, is a well-known polyglot, Richard Simcott, who raised his daughter to speak French and English exactly in this way. So he said everything in English, and then he said it in French as well. And his daughter had grown up to speaking both languages. Would I recommend this way? Not necessarily, because it is quite tiring, and it it's not kind of the natural way we would speak to switch between languages on say something twice. So my recommendation would be, because you say that you find it difficult to speak French, especially when your husband is around, and I understand that. So what you could do instead is to speak English with your son when your husband is around, but otherwise stick to French. So that then you would have a clear kind of separation between the languages, and you would know when to speak what. And there you because you say you find it difficult and you're afraid that you make mistakes. That also usually sorts itself out with children, especially since your son is lucky to have his grandmother around, who is a native French speaker, and you connect with them often and visit in the summer. So I think she can be a great help in there. That's what I'm currently doing with my grandson. We Skype on a weekly basis, and he comes to visit, and I speak as much Swedish as I can to help my daughter, who is the only other source for Swedish for my grandson. And of course, his aunt also speaks Swedish with him. But anyway, so to me, I would try switching more and more to French, because the more you can give exposure to him, you have seen that he's already learned to understand a lot. Then try to get to a point where you manage the French and English, so you stick to French during the day, and then you can switch to English during the evening. What you can do to kind of help your own French is have, for example, French radio in the background, so you hear it all day long. So and watch. For example, I know on Netflix nowadays you can get a lot of French programs, and try finding something that your husband also enjoys and switch on the English subtext and listen to that. Those are for adults. Those are really good sources of exposure to, especially when you already know the language, and you can then pick up new words and get used to the flow of the language again. So yes, to keeping the languages separate, maybe by time. It doesn't mean that you have to be really, really strict about it. If you feel that, oh no, I need to say this in English, fine, that's okay. Your son won't be well, initially he will mix languages, but don't worry about it. Every bilingual child does that. He will soon learn to keep them separate, especially since he's got the excellent exposure from your mum. So he will be his kind of main French speaking role model. If you have any further questions, then Malika, please do post them in the comments. So now I will take the questions that are coming here. Hi, Mariana. All right, we've already seen, we've met each other in London. That's good. And you have a question that you think is common. You have a 4-year-old daughter, and she's attending 2nd year of kindergarten in an international school in Dubai. And you follow a one parent, one language, where you speak Finnish, and her dad speaks Italian, and she doesn't mix the languages. Well done. And English is her academic language, so she goes to school in English. And this year they are learning phonics and bringing home English library book. I've never read nor spoken to her in English. Should I read those library books to her? And you're afraid that it may discourage her from using her minority languages, and know that English will eventually take over anyway. And thank you. I will try to keep up my work. It's always so great to have feedback. With regards to, I say reading in any language is fine. If your child wants you to read a book in a certain language, then do so. Don't make any books no go books. That's you should always foster a love for books and literature for your children. So what you can do is to read the book in English, because that's what she wants to do. Then speak about the book in your, so you would speak about it in Finnish and your husband would speak about it in Italian afterward, and kind of, oh, what do you think about this rabbit doing that, or what could have happened if, but do that in your own language. So you clearly, it's, yes, you read the book, but then you speak about the book in your language. So that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Not reading a book when a child wants to hear is not to be recommended. I always say, when the child wants you to read a book, please try to take the time to do it. And I know parents, you don't always have it, but if you have a grandma or an aunt or a grandpa nearby, please ask them to do it. Children should be read to as much as possible. And Jen, you had asked, what are your thoughts on teaching a toddler adoptee 2 languages that they are not familiar with? Now, Jen, if you are still online, can you please let me know how old this child is? Should I hold off on the second language till he's fluent in the majority language? So you say a toddler, so I would say between 1 and 3 years old. I would start with both languages at the same time. It's usually not, but it also depends on whether the child already knew language and whether you are looking to maintain that language as well. If you were to wait with the second language until the child is fluent in the first, it will take quite a while, and also it is always more difficult to introduce a language the later you do it with a child. But there are so many other aspects, like I said, the age and the level of whether the child is already speaking and what the level of language competence is, and how much exposure to each language, and whether you will maintain the original language and all of these things. So 2 years old, okay. So you're teaching yourself the second language. I am just to begin. Right. So the second language that you were planning to teach is not one that's already in the family. In that case, I probably would defer it and stick to one additional language for now, because I'm just thinking of the whole situation. We're having a new adoptee child and getting used to that, and making sure that you don't burden yourself too much as well. And because it's a big commitment to learn a language yourself and learn it with your child, and you can start that later. It would be different if those 2 languages already existed in the family, but since you're learning the second one, I would recommend that you do only the first one and possibly maintain the other language that the child already has, if that is possible. So I hope that's okay, Jen. If you have any further questions, just put them in the comments. So Dorte, welcome Dorte. So you speak English at home, and And then, so I presume you live in Denmark, Dorte, is that correct then? You find yourself speaking more and more Danish at home. Hi, Dorte. So do you live in Denmark, is that correct? And your mother tongue is English? Right, okay. And your husband wants you to speak more English at home. Yes, okay. So and is your husband is Danish, I presume. I understand why your husband wants you to speak English, and I actually agree with him. How old are your children? Oh, husband is Irish. Yeah. Okay. You're Danish, and your husband is Irish. Right. Okay. Sorry, I got the wrong end of the stick there. Okay. And you live in Denmark, and I presume the children go to Danish nursery, or do they stay at home? So you have twins of 5 and a brother and their brother who's 7, so 3 children, and they prefer Danish. I understand that's normal. That's what quite often happens when with the minority language, especially when children go to school and they get used to speaking more of the majority language. In your case, that's Danish, and that is the crucial time actually when children start attending daycare or school in the majority language to keep the minority language going. So your husband is still right to maintain the English for them. It would be good that they would hear as much English as much English as possible. I understand it's not always easy. Danish is your native tongue, and it comes naturally to you to speak Danish with your children when they answer you in Danish, and it's for them also more natural because it's your native tongue. But I understand your husband's request, and like I said, I kind of agree with him as well. But of course, you need to do it in a way that suits all of you. So it's very difficult to force yourself to speak a different language than you feel is right. So maybe you could start with having, for example, English Sundays. So otherwise you can stick or English weekends. So during the week, like when your children go from school, they come and tell you what's happened at school, and they're they just want to communicate, and there's a rush in the morning, and you just want to get them out of the house, or you get them in the car, or I don't know if they walk to school, or if you give them a lift. But anyway, there are many situations where it is just much more easy to speak the language that comes naturally to you. So I would start with trying to keep the weekends English. That would be the best way for them to become more fluent, more used to speaking English, and not switch to Danish so readily. And if that feels okay for you, then you can expand it from there, because research has shown that doing this approach, which is called minority language at home, is the one which is most effective at passing 2 languages to a child. So if the child is exposed to the majority language outside the home, and then at home they hear the minority language, that is the best guarantee for children to grow up being fluent in both languages. So yes, it would be beneficial if you could keep English as the family language, but do it as it feels right. Don't force yourself. Just find a way that that you're comfortable with, and maybe start with one day and then expand it from there. I think they find it hard to tell about the school day in English. Yes, I understand. That's exactly what happened with my daughter also. Okay, great, Tote. And if they come, even if you decide that, okay, now we only speak English at home, if they come home and speak about everything at school in Danish, just let them do it. Just then they come. What you can do then in the evening before they go to bed, you can bring up the things again and speak about them in English. In that way, you give them the vocabulary for those things that happen at school, because that's why it comes so easily in Danish for them, because they are so they know all the words in Danish, and this is how the teacher said it, and everything was in Danish, so it's naturally much more convenient and easy for them to say it in Danish. But if you then speak about it in English afterwards, then what you do is you give them the vocabulary, and you do that over and over again to make it easier for them to find the phrases to explain what they want to say in Danish. Okay, wish you all the best. I'm sure you can do it. I can read from your comments that you have the commitment needed for that. So good luck with it. So those, I think, were all the questions. Hi, Esa, I can see you waving. If there are no further questions, that will be all for today. There will be another live session in 2 weeks' time on a Thursday as normal. Please, if you have any questions, you can just send them through to rita@multilingualparenting.com or post them on social media. I'm easy to get hold of. There is only one person in the whole world with my name, so if you find a Rita Rosenbach, that's me. Okay, you take care, and thank you for taking part. Bye.